Hi, I'm Jerry from Attic Treasures, and welcome to this month's sewing project for our Sew Creative Club. This month's project is this adorable little sewing caddy. And this, what I like to do is when I do hand sewing, I like to sit on my couch nice and comfortable and do my hand sewing. But the scissors are always landing in the couch, and pins sort of fall on the couch, and then it's really dangerous for any other family members to actually sit there. So I've tried other caddies, and the problem is that you put heavy scissors in here into the pockets and it falls on the floor. So this one has a nice 7-inch pocket here, but it has this long edge right here, so this can actually fit underneath of the cushion of your couch or under your behind if you're sitting on a hard chair. And that way you can put anything heavy in these pockets, whether it be a remote or heavy scissors or anything you're using, your patterns, and then it won't fall off the edge of the couch. It has 2 pockets here for different things. It has a pin cushion, and it has an elastic piece right here to store threads and seam rippers or anything else you might need. So this project is done using both your serger as well as your sewing machine. And I've used my wave stitch on my serger to get a really pretty decorative edge. So for this project, if you're going to buy fabric for it, you're going to need 7/8 of a yard of any fabric, but you can also use scraps. So how you're going to start to cut this is you're going to cut 2 10-inch strips of fabric by the length from selvage to selvage. I've used 2 different colors of that. You're also going to need 1 strip 10 inches by 14 inches for the pocket, and you're going to need 2 small rectangles 4 inches by 6 inches for the pin cushion. You're also going to need to cut some heavy fusible interfacing such as Decobond, and then that's going to be 10 inches times the width of the fabric, and that's going to get fused to one edge. You're also going to need 1 piece of Decobond, 10 inches by 7 inches to line the inside edge of the pockets. You're going to need 1 6-inch strip of 1/2 inch wide elastic to hold your threads in. You're also going to need a little bit of fiber fill to stuff your pin cushion. Okay, because this has a pretty decorative edge, I used the wave stitch on my serger to create this. And if you're going to do the wave, you want pretty decorative threads. I chose to use Designer 7 thread by Robison Anton. You could use the Designer 6 if you still have some from YLI. You could use Lana's Madeira thread. Madeira's Lana thread is a good one to use. You could use woolly nylon, pearl rayon, sulky 12 weight, any of your pretty decorative threads. You're also going to need 1 spool of regular serger thread for the needle of your serger. And then you're going to need regular sewing thread for your sewing machine. Some of the notions you're going to need is it helps to have a marker so you can mark your pocket and the placement of your pin cushion as well as your elastic. So that's about all you need other than a serger, a sewing machine. Although if you don't have a serger, instead of doing the wave stitch, you could take pretty decorative threads and just do a zigzag, or you could use regular quilt binding or seam binding for the edge of the project too. So okay, let's get started. Okay, I'm going to bond the Decobond to heat bond it to the bottom of the pocket. The Decobond, you want to make sure that the shiny side is facing the fabric. And I've got a non-stick ironing board cover. If you don't have a non-stick, then you make sure you use a pressing cloth. In fact, it's not a bad idea to use one anytime. I want to use fairly high heat, and I'm just going to start, and I'm going to and you want a nice high heat and even pressure, and then fuse it down to one side. And you see, if you don't have enough heat, then what happens is that it doesn't stick very well. Okay, it's starting to stick now. So I'm going to stick one side in. I like to use an iron that does not have steam, mostly because it doesn't have all the holes on the bottom of the sole plate and doesn't cause any cool spots. So you just move it around in different spots, hold it down with a little bit of pressure. Usually about 5-10 seconds in each spot is good enough. And I'm going to turn this over and bond it from the other side. Now this is going to be stitched down, so okay. And I'm going to do the same thing with the long piece, only I'm going to fuse it to the whole piece. Okay. Oh yeah, on this pocket part, after I'm done bonding it, I just want to meet the end, put the ends together and give it a good press, a nice crease in the center. The next thing we're going to do with this piece is just stay stitch the 3 open edges. So I have a nice fold at the top, but I want to stay stitch these together. Now when I'm bonding the long piece, you don't necessarily have to cut off the selvages at this point. We're going to let the serger do that. So I'm just going to put the deco bond right up to the edge and just start fusing it down all the way to the end. And I'll do that off camera because this is what actually takes the longest, is adhering this deco bond to the fabric. Okay, now that I've got the deco bond attached to one layer, I'm going to put the backing on, right sides together, and I'll even match up the selvage lines because I'm going to cut both of those off. And then you can pin it together, or if you like, you can use a light spray adhesive, fabric adhesive, like KK 2000, 505, whatever is your favorite basting spray type used for embroidery, and you can tack it together. And then also you want to pin it. You can also pin the edges together and pin it all the way down. Okay, now that I have these pieces adhered together, I'm going to put it on the cutting table, and I'm going to go ahead and chop off the ends because no two pieces of fabric are the same width. So we didn't have to plan for it now. So I'm just going to take it over and then chop this off so that I'm cutting off all the selvages. And if I have any extra run over, like I do right here, you see that? Yeah, I have a little bit of run over with the deco bond. I'm going to go ahead and trim all that off. And I'm going to pin it together. You can stay stitch it if you like, but you don't have to. If you use the spray and the pins, then you're going to be fine. Quilting, we're taught to pin this way. We're going to ruin a blade really fast. So what you want to do is put these pins parallel about 1 inch away. So that way on the top part you're going to sew, because you don't want to run over those pins and ruin your blade. Okay. Now I'm going to take the pocket piece with the deco bond side. I've got mine stay stitched together. I'm just going to attach it. Just pin it to the bottom of one side. This one I do want to pin pretty well. Now if you want to, you could go ahead and stay stitch this in, but it's not necessary. I've also marked a line in the center that will be the stitching line so that it'll form 2 pockets instead of 1. Okay, and next we're going to go to the serger. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. You want to take your pin cushion pieces and you want to put those wrong sides together because we're going to do the wave stitch. If you don't have a wave stitch, then you can put them right sides together and then just do a regular 1/4 inch seam and sew them, but I think this is going to be prettier. And again, I'm just going to put a few pins just to hold this together. You don't have to use pins with a serger, but whenever I don't, I run into trouble, so I'm going to pin this together. Okay, now we're going to go to the serger and set that up. Okay, I'm going to set up this serger for the wave stitch. So the threading is a little bit different than for a regular 3-thread overlock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the needle in the right needle position, or the O2 position. I like using the clear foot, so I'm going to use the clear foot. My blade is engaged, and I've got it set to about, maybe about 6.5, a little bit wider, or not 6.5, excuse me, it's 4.0. So these threads don't like to thread very well into the threading ports. So I'm going to lock down my threading ports as normal, and I'm using the Evolve Wave. And no, I haven't upgraded yet, but I will be. Okay, if your threads don't fit on the stand or you don't feel like getting the spool pins out to hold it, you can set it on the table behind you, and just as long as the thread comes straight out and goes into the thread guide right there. So now for the wave, even though I'm using the right needle, I'm going to thread my needle into this position, which is normally for your left needle. This does not like to thread through the air jet, so I'm going to use a thread cradle. So I've taken about 1 yard of regular serger thread, and I'm going to take the 2 cut ends together, give it a little clean snip so that they're even, hold it about 1/2 inch away, put it in the port, hold the loop end because it will go all the way through, and see, it has come out right over here. See, my threads have come out right over here. Your upper looper normally goes into this port, which is this number 3 slot. But because it's the wave, it's going to go into the number 2 instead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the end of the thread, leave about 18 inches of excess thread, put it through the loop, pull the end through, and it's done. The trick to getting this thread under the foot easily is to go to the left of the cutter, and now it easily goes under the foot. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing. Now your lower looper is going to go where it normally goes, in that number 4 slot. And I'm going to thread there we go, and then put this in here. Need a little more slack. This through here, and pull this loop through. Again, under the left of the blade, under the foot, we're ready to go. My stitch selector is on B. I'm going to put the wave selector on wave. I want my blade width at about 4.0, or as wide as it's going to go, and I want my stitch length at one regular stitch, and I should be ready to stitch. When you're doing the wave stitch, you do not want to sew like your hair's on fire. There's a lot of thread coming off the spool rather quickly, so you need to give it some time. I also want differential feet right now, neutral. There's the sound. I forgot to release my threading tubes. Not a fatal noise. It is an annoying noise. And I'm getting a really pretty wave stitch. Okay. Alrighty. And that's a very, very nice wave stitch. And here it is on the scrap. See how pretty? Now you could use a 3-thread wide overlock or a 3-thread narrow, that doesn't matter. And what you want to do is whatever stitch you use, you want the stitch length to be as small as you can get it for the type of thread you're using. Okay, now we're ready to start sewing. So I have pinned everything together. I've pinned the pocket to one end. And I'm probably going to start there, but it really doesn't matter where you start. And I'm just going to start. I'm going to trim a little bit off because I always want to at least trim some off. I'm not going to try and tuck in these tails. I'm going to make that stitch length just a tiny bit longer because this is rather... And I always want to trim a little bit off. See how it's just... I want maybe about 1/8 of an inch off. Your serger will work more efficiently if it's allowed to trim something off. You see, I can go right by those pins, although that one's about to touch. Whatever you cut it off consistently. And I'm not going to rush it. Okay, when it's ready to turn the corner. See what a lovely wave stitch that is? And I'm going to just... Now, if you raise your needle to its highest position, your blade is in its highest position as well. That allows you to get another almost 1/4 of an inch further under the foot to start. So that's always a good idea. And yeah, it looks like those tails are showing, but I'll show you what I'm going to do with those in a few minutes. And I'm just going to stitch all the way around. And for consistency's sake, usually what I'm doing is I'm putting the edge of my fabric right at the edge of this plate right here. Okay, I'll speed this up, put on fast forward so you'll see how fast this can go. However, I'm not really going to be stitching that fast. That's just... Okay, now we're finished. Next thing we have to do is the little pin cushion. Okay, for the pin cushion, I'm going to sew the wave stitch on 3 sides. You can do any side. I probably would have an easier time if I had sewn this one last. But I'm going to get this fiber fill, stuff it in here really tight, as much as you can fit in. That would be comfortable for a nice pin cushion. Probably needs more than that. Okay, now I'm going to sew this, and you think, oh my goodness, it's in the way. So what I'm going to do is shove all that way down in here and pin it so that it can't get out. Push it all the way to one end. Okay, so now I have a flat surface to sew. And I'll get this last side. Once you're done sewing it, pull your pins out and redistribute. So now you have a nice little pin cushion. Now what do I do with these tails? I will show you. Okay, now here's how you finish these the corners. You've got this long string of rather thick stuff, so you could put fray check here, a drop of fray check, let it dry, and then cut it. But this is such furry thread, or loosely woven thread, that it tends to bloom out, or I call it the big fuzzies. So what you want to do is get a yarn darner or a double-eyed needle, anything that's got a great big eye so that it'll fit through, so this yarn will fit in there. String it, put it through the back, and just weave it in for about 1 inch. And it should be done. There, weave it in about 1 inch, pull it through, and it's done. Just clip the excess, and it's finished. Okay, now the next thing you want to do is see how neat this the pin cushion is, with the corners all tucked in and woven in the back. Okay, now you're going to take a chalk marker, and I'm going to mark down the center of my pocket, and I'm just going to sew a straight stitch. You could actually sew this pocket before you did the edge stitching on the entire caddy. So I'm just going to sew right down the middle, and I'm going to back tack the top and the bottom. I'm also going to take a line straight across about 14 inches away from the edge of the pocket, because this is going to be the placement for my pin cushion, and I'm just going to hand tack that in there, and then we're going to put the elastic on. Okay, now I'm going to attach the elastic, because it's going to hold the spool of thread onto your caddy. So I'm going to start at one end. Over here, let me go this way. Okay. I'm just about 1/2 inch away from the edge. I'm going to just put your elastic to the outside and just do a nice double row of stitching, and then back tack. And do a double row to secure it. Okay, I'm going to flip this to the inside. Okay, I'm going to flip. It was sewn this way, now I'm going to flip this into the inside. And I'm coming about 5 inches away. It actually depends on how many spools of thread you're going to put in, or how fat a spool. So usually that's about 5 inches from one side, from this side to this side. My elastic is actually 6 inches long, but I'm just going to make it, I'm just guessing it, maybe 4.5 inches. And then I'm going to sew this to the side, put that right there, and you can see I'm holding this part out of the way, and I'm just going to, again, I'm going to raise the needle, do a double row. I could zigzag it in if I liked. And then I'm probably going to divide this space into 3. And I'm pretty much going to eyeball it to where I'm going to put my spools of thread. So then here's a space for 1. And only 1 row of stitching is necessary here. Come in the middle here, divide that out, sort it in half, come right down the middle, and now I've got room for 3 spools of thread. You could measure it. So now see, my spools of thread will fit in here snugly. And then I'm going to hand tack the pin cushion on the back, but for now I'm just going to pin it, but I'm just going to whip stitch it into place by hand. It's finished. It's ready to go over the arm of my favorite couch, and now I can put this under the cushion and I can have many hours of sewing away. Hope you enjoyed this project. So we will see you again next month. If you have any questions, you can reach me at waltzquilt@yahoo.com, or you can always call Attic Treasures at 703-490-1536. See you next month. Bye.